Good evening. This is Principal Darby, and this is...
I'm Mrs. Bogle, 5th grade ELA.
And we thank you for tuning in tonight to Royal Palm's Bedtime Story. Now, remember, last time I read, which was last Monday, I said I'm going to read a chapter book, which means you have to pay attention. So if you haven't heard the first part, I would say pause, go listen to the first part, and then come back. I promise you, it'll still be here. Okay, so last time I read, it was about Ethan, who is a football player. He plays wide receiver. Remember, that's the person who catches the ball. Who's the person who throws the ball?
That is the quarterback.
Good job. So the quarterback throws the ball to the wide receiver, and they're friends. And they had a very big game. And they threw the ball to Ethan, and he caught the ball for a touchdown, which is good. But then it was close at the end of the game, and they threw him another ball, and what do you think happened?
He missed it.
He missed the ball, okay? So that's not yay. He lost the game for it. Well, he dropped the ball that could have won the game.
Play, right.
Okay? So now we're going on to chapter 2, and it's the same character. And remember, it's a lot about football, but it's a lot of story within the football. And if you pay attention, remember in the middle, I'll give you a teacher's name or employee's name, and you have to tell me that name in order to get the prize, which means you must listen. And then we'll show you who our special guests are as well. We can kind of show you one or two now. And you can give them whatever name you want.
This reminds me of Coco, the Pixar film. So I think that we should name this one Coco.
Okay. And we'll let you name the other ones. Okay.
What do you think their name should be? Comment that below. We're looking for names.
Good job.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Pay attention. Somebody focus. All right. We're getting started.
Okay, so chapter 2 of Touchdown Turmoil, Emerging Victorious. Ethan came out of the bathroom after taking a shower. Dad was sitting on the couch, shaking his head and fiddling around with his phone. He belonged to some college football chat groups. He liked to argue with people about matchups, strategy, rankings, key players, injuries, you name it. Dad showed Ethan a comment QB 3000 had left. It said, Auburn beats Bama on Saturday by 10.
Okay, so what is he making right there? He's making a prediction saying that the school, Alabama, is going to beat the other school. Auburn's going to beat Alabama, they called it Bama, by 10 points on Saturday. So he's making a prediction. Let's see if he's right.
And Bama's like roll tide, right?
Yeah, they're a top team.
A little bit. Okay. Dad laughed and said, Auburn can't stop Alabama's offense. They can't stop Alabama's defense. They can't stop Alabama's special teams. QB 3000 ought to come back to the present.
Okay, remember QB 3000 is a person. They're kind of in a chat room. And QB 3000 is saying the opposite of what Dad is saying. Let's see what QB 3000 has to say.
Ethan plopped down on the couch. He didn't say anything. Dad lowered his phone and said, should we get some super glue to put on your gloves? That's what the Patriots do. No, they don't, said Ethan. Yeah, they do, said Dad. They deflate balls and glue up their gloves. Says who, says Ethan.
Okay, so you're not allowed to do that. So he's saying that the other team is doing what? He says they're cheating because you can't put glue on your hands to make the ball stick, and you can't flatten the ball so you don't fumble it. Okay?
QB 3000, said Dad. I don't need any glue on my gloves, said Ethan. I know you don't need any glue on your gloves, said Dad. Want to have a pizza? No, Ethan said. I don't either, Dad said. Pizza is overrated. Let's do some one-handers. I'm assuming that's like a drill, right?
Yeah, okay. One-handers. Maybe they'll tell us.
They turned on the yard lights and grabbed a ball out of the garage. Ethan jogged a fly pattern. Dad lofted a floater. Ethan caught with one hand.
So, Miss Bogle's prediction was right. One-handers mean they're throwing the ball and he's catching it, and he caught it with one hand.
Ethan tossed the ball back and ran an out route. This time, Dad fired it. Again, Ethan caught the ball with one hand. Dad said, use one hand in games. Coach Jennifer will love it. I'd get benched, Ethan said.
What does that mean, I'd get benched?
Great vocabulary word.
Okay, I'd get benched if I do that, he's saying to his dad. Bench means if I do this, the coach is going to take me out of the game and make me sit on the bench and not participate. He don't want them catching with one hand. Catch it with two hands.
Sounds like unsportsmanlike conduct, like showboating. I know you can get a flag on that sometimes. Probably, Dad said. Run a slant. Ethan lined up. Dad nodded as a signal to start the play. Ethan took one step and then cut to the inside. He slanted up the would-be field, which of course was the yard. Dad delivered a bullet, and Ethan bought it in with one hand.
Okay, he continued to catch with one hand. They say the way that you practice is the way you play in a game. So he's probably going to try to catch the ball with one hand in the game. And remember, who doesn't like that? Tell me.
Coach Jennifer.
Good job.
Awesome, Dad said. These one-handers make you watch the ball more. Ethan tossed the ball to Dad, who caught it and fired it right back. Ethan tried to one-hand it, and he almost made a clean catch. He bobbled it enough to snap it out of the air and pull it into his chest. He acted like he was getting 2 feet inbounds along the sidelines and for effect fell down.
They said he bobbled it enough to snap. What do you think they mean by bobbled? He's throwing the ball and he bobbled it. Good job. Bobble means he was like fumbling the ball, but he was still able to catch it.
I like the visuals that I'm getting from this. Dad ran up to make the complete signal. He said, "First down," while Ethan was still lying on the ground. Dad said, "Get up and run a hitch and go."
Remember, hitch and go is from the last chapter. One time he caught the touchdown. The next time he bobbled it, but he wasn't able to keep it. He dropped it.
Ethan stayed on the ground. Dad said, "Well, I guess you can get back on the horse tomorrow." In bed that night, Ethan rolled around. He couldn't sleep. The drop, hitch, and go in the game haunted him. He just couldn't believe it. The hitch and go was his favorite play, his bread and butter, and he balled up wads of sheets in his fist. He squeezed as hard as he could until his hands hurt.
Okay, 1 second. We're going to go back. It said it was his bread and butter. Do you think they really mean that was his bread and butter? What do you think they mean by that?
Sounds like some figurative language. 5th grade.
Okay, figurative language meaning that was his big play. That was the one that he would make all the scores on. So that was his bread and butter. That was his go-to play.
At school the next day, Ethan saw Christian and the growly lineman in the hall. Christian said, "You sleep last night?" Ethan said, "Not really." "Me either," said Christian. "I was too jacked up. How do you feel today?" "Not super great," Ethan said. "Yeah," said Christian. "You gotta catch those." Ethan didn't know if Christian was kidding or not. Christian wore a frown, but that was sort of how he always looked. So Ethan just said, "I know." Christian growled. He slapped Ethan on the shoulder and walked off. Ethan didn't know Christian very well. He didn't know what to make of Christian's remarks. What if Christian was more upset than Ethan realized? Ethan's stomach dropped and suddenly he felt like hitting the nurse's office. Ethan entered a classroom and sat down next to Gavin, whose eyelids looked droopy. Maybe Gavin hadn't slept much either. Ethan figured his drop pass must have ruined the night for his quarterback, or QB. It probably ruined the night for the entire team. The teacher assigned a bunch of math problems. Ethan was yawning and having trouble paying attention. He asked Gavin if he knew the answer to one of the problems. Gavin said no, even though Ethan could see that Gavin had finished the problem. Ethan wondered if this had something to do with the drop pass. The teacher went over the answers. Ethan got a few more wrong than he usually did, and he didn't really care. He was mad because other people were mad. He had never screwed up a play to lose a game. In fact, on many occasions, he had made the game-winning plays. A losing play? The feeling was new. Ethan hated it. It stunk. It stunk worse than his socks, worse than his cleats, worse than his gear after practice in August. It was right. Ethan thought he might have to throw up, so he got a hall pass. Once he got to the restroom, he decided he didn't have to. He did want to sit in private, though. He went into the stall and shut the door. He leaned up against one of the walls and squirmed. He replayed the drop pass in his head. He remembered rushing off the line of the scrimmage, stopping, cutting back, and looking for the ball. He remembered Gavin's pump fake. He remembered busting upfield, past the defensive back.
Pause. Remember the name that I was going to give you of an employee? You're going to have to give me this name and try to find this gentleman in the school. The name is Mr. Quincy. I'll say it one more time. Mr. Quincy. Okay, carry on.
This time, he watched the ball closely and imagined bringing it in with one hand. No problem. Touchdown. But this was just his imagination. In the real world, he had left his classroom and was leaning with his head against a wall in the bathroom. Ethan didn't know what he was doing. He was so upset, he wandered the halls for a few minutes. He stopped at a drinking fountain and took a long drink, swallowing the cold water. He told himself that he would have to do better. He would get tougher mentally. He would sharpen his concentration and not take any plays for granted. He would never let his team down. The hitch pattern was his. He owned it. The hitch and go pattern was his. He owned it. He owned every ball thrown in the air. He was Ethan, and he would emerge victorious.
Okay, so Ethan wasn't feeling good because he had dropped the ball and he felt like everyone was mad at him.
Yeah.
And he even got mad at himself.
Yeah.
But he wants to come out victorious, but I don't know if catching that ball with one hand is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But we'll find out on the next chapter. And remember that name that I told you. And remember, as somebody focus. Remember, as you enter that classroom tomorrow, the most important thing is learning. That is your responsibility. And make sure that you are showing kindness. Mm-hmm. Kindness to self, kindness to scholars, kindness to the staff, and kindness to the school.
Yep.
This is Principal Darby.
Mrs. Bogle, 5th grade ELA.
And we thank you for tuning in to Royal Palms Bedtime Story. Good night. Let us show you our friends who are watching.
Say hi, guys.
It's quite a few of them.
Yeah, we got a whole little crew.
You could give them a name if you like.
Remember we had Coco. We're looking for a name. I'll name you Robbie. I'll name you Antonio.
Robbie is our son. Alrighty. Have a good night.